Commander Zethkar floated in the observation chamber of his ship, watching the blue planet spin slowly below. His 4 eyes tracked the movement of tiny lights across the dark side of the world. The creatures down there called it Earth. To him, it was just Survey Target 848. The ship hung invisible in the upper atmosphere, hidden by technology that bent light around its crystal hull. Humans could not see them. Their primitive instruments could not detect them. Zethkar had been watching for 3 full cycles now, and the patterns were always the same. Commander, his aide Veloth, spoke through the communication link. Morning reports are ready. Zethkar moved his long limbs to the central console. Data streams flowed across the transparent screen in neat columns. Population counts, technology assessments, resource measurements. Everything the Dominion needed to know about their next acquisition. He read the daily summary with growing satisfaction. The humans were following the expected development path. They fought among themselves in small conflicts. They had basics, flying machines that could barely leave their atmosphere. Their weapons were crude explosives and projectiles. Most importantly, they showed no signs of detecting the survey fleet. Standard integration timeline? Veloth asked. Standard Zethka. Confirmed. Perhaps even accelerated. They appear unusually cooperative with authority figures. Integration should proceed smoothly once we make contact. This was good news. The last 3 species had required expensive pacification campaigns. The Dominion Council preferred willing subjects to defeated enemies. Willing subjects worked harder and caused fewer problems. Zethkar had overseen 17 successful integrations in his career. Each followed the same pattern. First came the observation phase, where survey fleets gathered intelligence. Then came the revelation, where Dominion ships appeared in the sky to announce their presence. Most species experienced brief panic, followed by attempts at negotiation. The wise leaders among them quickly realized the futility of resistance and agreed to integration terms. The benefits were substantial. Integrated species received access to Dominion technology, medical advances, and transportation networks. In exchange, they provided labor, resources, and soldiers for the ever-expanding empire. It was a fair trade that had brought peace and prosperity to 847 worlds. The humans would be number 848. Dr. Sarah. Chen stared at the readouts for the 3rd time that morning. The numbers made no sense. According to her instruments, there was something massive in the upper atmosphere, something that affected gravity in ways that should be impossible. She worked alone in the small observation station built to replace the old Arecibo facility. The government had given her a modest budget and basic equipment. Most scientists thought her research into atmospheric gravitational anomalies was pointless. But Sarah had always been curious about things that didn't fit normal patterns. The anomaly had appeared 3 months ago. At first, she thought it was equipment failure. She ran diagnostics, replaced sensors, and recalibrated everything twice.
Ow.
The readings stayed the same. Something was up there. Sarah pulled up the Global Atmospheric Monitoring Network on her computer. Stations around the world showed similar anomalies, but no one seemed to be paying attention. Weather services reported unusual electromagnetic interference. Satellite operators complained about signal disruption in specific orbital zones. Commercial pilots filed reports about compass deviations at high altitudes. Each incident by itself seemed minor. Taken together, they painted a picture that made Sarah's hands shake as she typed her report. She had sent warnings to NASA, the Air Force, and the National Science Foundation. Their responses were polite but dismissive. Equipment malfunctions. Where common atmospheric research was complicated. She should check her instruments again, but Sarah knew her instruments were working perfectly. Something was hiding in the sky above them. Zethkar reviewed the behavioral analysis reports while his ship drifted through Earth's thin upper atmosphere. Human social structures were remarkably similar to other integrated species. They had centralized governments, military hierarchies, and clear leadership chains. Most importantly, they showed strong tendencies toward submission to authority. The psychological profiles were encouraging. Humans appeared to value survival over pride, formed large cooperative groups when faced with external threats. History showed numerous examples of smaller nations surrendering to larger ones without prolonged conflict. Sir Velith interrupted his reading, receiving some unusual signals from the surface. Zethkar's attention focused on his aid. Unusual how? Targeted electromagnetic pulses directed toward our operational zone. Very weak, but remarkably precise for their technology level. Show me. A tactical display revealed dozens of thin energy beams originating from different points on the planet's surface. Each beam probed the exact location where Dominion ships hung in orbit. The beams were too weak to penetrate their shields, but their accuracy was disturbing. Are they detecting us? No, known, sir. The beams could be coincidental. Humans use many electromagnetic frequencies for communication and research, but the targeting pattern suggests possible awareness of our presence. Zethkar studied the display. In his 17 previous integrations, no species had ever detected survey fleet operations. Their stealth technology was far beyond anything primitives could perceive, yet these readings suggested otherwise. Maintain observation protocols, he ordered, but prepare early contact scenarios. If they can detect us, our timeline may need adjustment. Sarah worked through the night, correlating data from every source she could access. The pattern was becoming clearer. The gravitational anomalies moved in formation. They maintained specific positions relative to major population centers. Most telling of all, they responded to her probing signals. She had been sending focused radio pulses toward the anomalies for weeks. Tonight, she tried something different. Instead of random frequencies, she transmitted a simple mathematical sequence. Prime numbers followed by the Fibonacci sequence, followed by pi calculated 250 decimal places. The response came exactly 17 minutes later. Not from the anomalies themselves, but from a communication satellite that briefly redirected its beam toward her location. The message was short and precise. The same mathematical sequences she had transmitted, played back with perfect accuracy. Something intelligent was watching. Earth, something with technology far beyond human capabilities. And now it knew that she knew. Sarah stared at the message playback on her screen and felt the world change around her. Humanity was not alone in the universe. But she had a terrible feeling that was not good news. She reached for her phone, too. Call the emergency contact number she had been given by the government. Her hand stopped moving when she realized the truth. If these beings wanted to hide from humanity, they had the technology to do so perfectly. The fact that she could detect them meant only one thing: they wanted to be found. The question was, why? Above her, invisible ships continued their silent watch, and their crews prepared for the next phase of a plan that had worked 847 times before. The ships appeared at exactly noon. Greenwich Mean Time. Massive crystalline vessels materialized over every major city on Earth. London saw the first one, structure the size of 10 city blocks hanging motionless above Parliament. Within minutes, identical ships emerged from invisible cloaks over New York. Tokyo, Moscow, Beijing, and 47 other population centers. Commander Zethkar stood on the command bridge of the flagship. Watching feeds from around the planet, humans poured into streets, pointing upward with their primitive optical devices. Some fell to their knees. Others ran in panic. A few stood perfectly still, as if frozen by the sight. This was the standard reaction pattern. He had seen it 47 times before. Begin transmission, Zethkar ordered. The message broadcast simultaneously from every ship in every human language. The translation systems had analyzed human communication for 3 months, building perfect linguistic profiles. The words were simple and clear. People of Earth, you are now under the protection of the Dominion. Your species will be integrated into our galactic civilization. This process will bring you peace, prosperity, and technological advancement. You have 72 Earth hours to prepare your world for transition. Resistance will be met with appropriate force. Cooperation will be rewarded with full citizenship rights. The message repeated every hour in rotation through major languages: English, Mandarin, Spanish, Hindi, Arabic, Russian. The same words, the same calm tone, the same inevitable conclusion. Zethkar expected the usual response sequence. First would come panic, lasting approximately 6 to 12 hours. Then desperate communication attempts as human leaders tried to establish dialogue. Finally, acceptance, as they realized the hopelessness of their position. Instead, something else happened. President Maria Santos sat in the emergency bunker beneath the White House, surrounded by military advisors and cabinet members. The alien message played for the third time on the main screen. Around the table, faces showed fear, confusion, and anger. "Options?" she asked. General Morrison leaned forward. "Ma'am, these ships are using technology we can't understand.
Ow!
Weapons probably can't even reach them, let alone damage them. Probably we don't know for certain until we try." Secretary of Defense Williams shook his head. "Mr. President, if we attack and fail, we might make things worse for everyone on Earth. If we surrender without trying, we make things worse." "Anyway," Santos replied, "these aliens are talking about integration, not cooperation. They're talking about making us part of their empire." The room fell silent. Everyone understood the difference. "Ma'am," Air Force General Chang spoke quietly, "I have reports coming in from around the world. Other nations are scrambling fighter jets. The Chinese launched 3 missiles at the ship over Beijing 15 minutes ago. Results? The missiles detonated against some kind of barrier around the ship. No apparent damage to the alien vessel." Santos nodded slowly. "But they tried." "What else are we hearing?" "The Russians are moving nuclear submarines into launch positions. The British are evacuating London while simultaneously preparing orbital strikes. The Japanese just announced they're launching everything they have at the International Space Station. Everything they have? Cargo capsules, research modules, maintenance robots. They're turning civilian space equipment into kinetic weapons." Santos looked around the room at faces that reflected her own thoughts. Earth's nations rarely agreed on anything. But in the past 6 hours, they had all reached the same conclusion independently. "General Morrison, what's our current orbital inventory?" "Ma'am, we have 43 active satellites, 17 decommissioned platforms, and 3 emergency supply modules on the space station. How quickly can we weaponize them?"
Hours.
"Give me 4 hours." Zethkar watched the tactical displays with growing confusion. According to all previous integration models, humans should be attempting diplomatic contact by now. Instead, they were doing something unprecedented. They were fighting back. "Sir Veloth," reported from the weapons station, "we're detecting launch signatures from multiple surface locations. Primitive chemical rockets, most carrying nuclear warheads. Standard response protocol?" Zethkar ordered. "Shields will absorb the impacts. Let them exhaust their arsenal." But the attacks kept coming. Missiles from submarines, ground installations, and aircraft. Most detonated harmlessly against Dominion shields. But some had different payloads, kinetic penetrators designed to punch through armor, electromagnetic pulse devices that disrupted electronics, chemical dispersal systems that created clouds of corrosive vapor. "Sir, these weapons are specifically designed to exploit different defensive systems," the tactical officer reported. "They're not just throwing everything they have at us, they're testing our capabilities." Zethkar studied the attack patterns more carefully. The humans were learning. Each wave of missiles carried different payloads, probing different aspects of Dominion defenses. When kinetic weapons proved partially effective, more kinetic weapons followed. When electromagnetic attacks caused minor system fluctuations, the next wave carried stronger EMP devices.
How long have they been planning this?
He wondered aloud. The answer came from the communications station. "Sir, we're intercepting human military communications. These attack plans were developed in the past 6 hours. They're coordinating globally using their primitive information networks." 6 hours. In 6 hours, the humans had analyzed alien technology they had never seen before, developed countermeasures using equipment they already possessed, coordinated a planetary defense, response across multiple nations that normally considered each other enemies. No integrated species had ever managed such rapid adaptation, Sarah? Chen crouched in the basement of her laboratory, laptop balanced on her knees. The building shook as another wave of military aircraft passed overhead. On her screen, Lines of code scrolled past as she worked to crack the alien communication protocols. She was not the only one trying. Around the world, thousands of programmers, engineers, and hackers had joined an improvised network. They called themselves the Digital Resistance. Their goal was simple: break into alien systems and turn their own technology against them. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. A teenager in Mumbai named Raj had been experimenting with radio frequencies when the ships appeared. He discovered that the alien translation systems were two-way connections. Not only could the aliens understand human languages, but their systems were actively learning new words and phrases from human broadcasts. If the systems were learning, they were also vulnerable. Sarah's laptop chimed with an incoming message from the network. Someone in Germany had found a way to inject false data into the alien learning protocols. Someone in Brazil had identified the specific frequencies the ships used for internal communication. Someone in Australia had reverse-engineered the basic structure of their command systems. Separately, each discovery was minor. Together, they were building something that had never existed before: a human weapon designed to fight an information.
A war against superior technology.
This is Sarah Chen broadcasting to all resistance nodes, she typed into the network. I have confirmed access to their observation protocols, beginning upload of human cultural databases now. If the aliens wanted to learn about humanity, she would teach them. She would teach them about human music, human art, human history, and human stories. She would show them what they were trying to destroy. But most importantly, she would show them what humans did when someone tried to take their freedom away. Zethkar received the first anomalous communication at hour 18 of the integration process, instead of desperate pleas for negotiation. His systems detected something impossible. Human voices were speaking on Dominion frequencies. "This is Earth calling the ships in our sky," a female voice said in perfect Dominion standard language. "We know you can hear us. We know you're listening. We have a message for you." The message that followed was not a surrender. It was something Zethkar had never heard in 47 previous integrations. It was a declaration of war. The first breach came at hour 20-6. Sarah Chen watched her screen as lines of alien code suddenly made sense. The breakthrough had taken 30 hours of continuous work by 7,000 programmers scattered across 6 continents. Now the Dominion communication network lay open before them like a map. "We're in," she whispered into her headset microphone. The words traveled instantly to resistance nodes in every major city still standing. Full access to their primary communication channels. In Tokyo, Kenji Nakamura uploaded human music files directly into the alien fleet's internal systems. Classical symphonies, rock anthems, and electronic beats began playing on Dominion ships. The alien crews tried to stop the music, but every time they closed one channel, 10 more opened. In London, Dr. James Wright streamed video feeds from human museums into alien visual displays. Paintings, sculptures, and photographs replaced tactical information on ship monitors. The Mona Lisa smiled at confused alien navigators. Van Gogh's stars swirled across weapons targeting systems in Snow Paulo. Maria Santos used her skills as a video game programmer to inject interactive human stories into alien data streams. Suddenly, alien crew members found their workstations, displaying human movies, books, and historical documentaries. They learned about human wars, human loves, human dreams, whether they wanted to or not. The sky itself began to change. Commander Zethkar stared at his command displays in growing horror. Every screen showed human faces, human writing covered his ship's hull in glowing letters that spelled words in dozens of languages. The ship's communication array broadcast human voices singing, laughing, and shouting in defiance. "Report," he demanded. "Sir, they've completely infiltrated our information systems," Velith replied, his voice shaking. "They're not just accessing our communications, they're rewriting our software in real time." "How is that possible? Our encryption protocols are military grade, our firewalls are impenetrable." "Sir, they're not breaking our security. They're using our own learning systems against us. Every time our computers try to understand their language, they inject new code. Our translation systems are becoming Trojan horses." Zethkar watched, as his tactical display dissolved into a stream of human images. Children playing in parks, families gathering for meals, scientists working in laboratories, artists creating beautiful things, workers building cities, people living, loving, and dreaming on the blue planet below. Sir, the communications officer called out, receiving a transmission on all frequencies. It's coming from inside our own systems. The voice that emerged from the speakers was clear and strong. It belonged to a young human female. This is Sarah Chen of Earth, broadcasting to the Dominion fleet. You came here expecting to find another primitive species ready for integration. Instead, you found us. We are human beings, and we are not your property. Zethkar tried to cut the transmission, but his controls no longer responded to his commands. The human voice continued. You have conquered 847 worlds. You've enslaved billions of thinking beings. You believe this makes you powerful. But you have never faced a species like ours. You have never faced humans who refuse to kneel. Dr. Sarah Chen stood in her basement laboratory, surrounded by screens showing alien ship interiors. The resistance network had grown beyond her wildest dreams. Every computer programmer, every hacker, every electronics engineer on Earth had joined the fight. They called it the Digital Liberation Front. But this was about more than computers and code. This was about showing the aliens something they had never seen in 847 previous conquests. Upload package 7, she said into her microphone. Around the world, resistance cells activated their prepared data streams. This package was different from the others. Instead of music or art or stories, it contained something more powerful. It contained the truth. Every alien screen in the fleet suddenly displayed footage from their previous conquests. Video records of species forced into slavery, images of entire civilizations stripped of their freedom, documentation of Dominion crimes committed across the galaxy. But the humans had added something new. They had found records of resistance movements on every conquered world, beings who had tried to fight back, rebels who had died for freedom, heroes who had never given up hope. You want to know what makes humans different? Sarah's voice echoed. Through every Dominion ship, we remember. We remember every injustice. We remember every crime, and we never forget our friends. The alien crews watched in stunned silence as their screens showed rebellion after rebellion, crushed by Dominion forces. But now those same screens began displaying something else. Human military units were broadcasting messages to every conquered world in the galaxy. This is Earth calling the survivors of Kepler 4 to be. We know you're still fighting. We're coming to help you. This is Earth calling. The underground resistance on Wolf 359C. Your struggle was not in vain. We remember your heroes. This is Earth calling. Any free beings still hiding in Dominion space. You are not alone anymore. Humans are coming. Aboard the Dominion flagship, chaos erupted. Crew members stood frozen at their stations, staring at displays they could no longer control. Some began asking questions they had never dared voice before. If humans could resist integration, why couldn't others? If one species could fight back successfully, what did that mean about Dominion superiority? Zethkar tried to maintain order, but his authority was crumbling along with his worldview. The humans had done something unprecedented. They had turned the sky above their planet into a broadcasting station that reached across the galaxy. Every Dominion ship now displayed human faces, human voices, and human messages of hope. The fleet's own communication arrays carried signals to 847 enslaved worlds, telling them that freedom was possible. Sir, the tactical officer reported with obvious distress. We're receiving response signals from multiple Dominion territories. Slave populations are attempting to contact the human broadcasts. Cut all external communications, Zethkar ordered. I can't, sir. Humans have locked us out of our own systems. We're trapped in a communication loop we cannot break. The truth was worse than system failure. The humans had not simply hacked Dominion technology. They had hijacked it completely. Every ship in the fleet was now a human broadcasting station, transmitting messages of rebellion to every corner of the galaxy. Sarah watched the data streams flowing across her screens. Messages were arriving from distant worlds. Faint signals from beings who had been slaves for generations, suddenly hearing that resistance was possible. The signals were weak and broken, transmitted through ancient hidden equipment, but they carried the same message in dozens of different languages. We are still here. We are still fighting. Help us. She smiled as she typed her response into the global network. Message received. Earth is coming. Stay strong. Above her, the alien ships hung in the sky like captured stars, their hulls blazing. With human light and human voices, the sky had become human, and across the galaxy. The age of Dominion was beginning to end, but the humans were just getting started. All resistance nodes Sarah broadcast to her network. Prepare Package 8. It's time to show them what happens when you threaten human freedom. She looked up at the ceiling, imagining the alien ships beyond. They had come expecting to find another helpless species. Instead, they had found humanity's greatest strength. They had found humans who fought back. The first Dominion soldier broke at hour 40-8. Technician Sci Ravel had been monitoring communication systems when the human broadcasts began. For 2 days, he had watched his screens fill with alien faces, alien voices, and alien stories. The humans called it music, art, and literature. To Sci Ravel, it was chaos. He sat in his small workspace aboard the ship orbiting above New York, staring at a video feed of human children playing in a park before the invasion. The children laughed as they chased each other around colorful structures. They were completely unaware that death hung in the sky above them. Sci Ravel had participated in 17 integrations. He had watched the preliminary bombardments that softened resistance. He had seen cities burn and populations flee. It was necessary work, bringing order to chaotic species. The Dominion way was better than primitive freedom, but these humans were different. They did not burn their cities or flee in terror. Instead, they fought back with weapons made of creativity and hope. They used their enemy's technology to broadcast messages of defiance across the galaxy. Worst of all, they were winning. Technician Sci Ravel, his supervisor's voice crackled through the communication unit. Report to psychological evaluation immediately. Sci Ravel stood slowly. Around the ship, other crew members were being called for evaluation too. The human broadcasts were having unexpected effects on Dominion personnel. Some crew members had stopped following orders. Others asked dangerous questions about the nature of integration. A few had begun listening to human music during off-duty hours. The Psychological Evaluation Center was crowded with worried-looking soldiers and technicians. Dr. Zenthak, the ship's mind specialist, moved between them with growing concern. The human broadcasts are causing cognitive dissonance among the crew, she explained to Commander Zethkar via communication link. These beings are showing our people concepts we've worked generations to eliminate. Individual choice, creative expression, resistance to authority. Can you counter the effects? Sir, the problem is not the broadcasts themselves. The problem is that our people are responding to them. They're remembering things we taught them. To forget, Commander Zethkar felt something cold growing in his chest. Something he had not experienced since childhood training taught him to suppress it. It might have been fear. Explain. Integration works because species eventually accept that resistance is futile. But humans are broadcasting proof that resistance is possible. More than that, they're showing our enslaved populations how to resist. The psychological foundation of our entire empire is cracking. In the lower decks of ships across the fleet, Dominion soldiers gathered in small groups. They whispered about things they had never discussed before. Some remembered homeworlds that had been integrated when they were children. Others questioned why they had never been allowed to visit the 847 worlds they were supposed to be protecting. Soldier Vextar found himself thinking about his parents for the first time in 20 years. They had died during his planet's integration, fighting against Dominion forces. He had been told they were criminals who chose chaos over order. But the human broadcasts showed him something different. They showed him that people who died fighting for freedom were called heroes. Vextar, his unit commander, approached him. You're needed in the armory. The humans have somehow accessed our teleportation network. Accessed it how? They're using it. Vextar followed his commander through the ship's corridors. Around them, emergency lights flashed red as alerts echoed from the communication system. Human voices speaking in perfect Dominion language announced that boarding parties were materializing throughout the fleet. They reached the armory to find chaos. Human soldiers had appeared inside the most secure areas of Dominion ships. These were not normal soldiers. They carried improvised weapons and wore makeshift armor. Most shocking of all, they were laughing. "How did they get aboard?" Vexter asked. "They reprogrammed our own teleportation systems using captured access codes," the commander replied. "They're using our technology to board our ships." "That's impossible. Our teleportation systems require advanced training to operate. Tell that to them." Vextar watched through the security monitors as human boarding parties moved through ship corridors. They moved with purpose and determination, but also with something he had never seen in warfare before: joy. They were enjoying themselves. One human soldier disabled a security door by connecting a primitive device to the control panel. The door opened, he grinned, and gave a gesture the translation systems identified as a victory sign. Another human used her weapon to carve symbols into a bulkhead. The symbols spelled "Earth remembers" in Dominion standard text. They're not trying to destroy the ships, Vextar realized. They're trying to capture them. Capture them for what? To go after the other 847 worlds. Sarah Chen materialized inside a Dominion ship for the first time in her life. The teleportation technology was far beyond anything humans had developed, but her team had figured out how to use it anyway. The trick was not understanding how it worked, but simply convincing the alien computers that she belonged where she was going. She stood in what appeared to be a data storage facility, surrounded by crystalline structures that hummed with energy. Around her, 5 other humans checked their improvised equipment and weapons. They were engineers, programmers, and scientists who had volunteered for the most dangerous mission in human history. "Remember," Sarah spoke quietly into her communication device. "We're not here to destroy, we're here to liberate information. Everything the Dominion knows about their enslaved worlds, we need to copy and broadcast." The team spread out through the facility. They connected human devices to alien systems, downloading terabytes of data about 847 conquered civilizations, star charts showing the locations of slave worlds, population records listing billions of enslaved beings. Most importantly, communication logs that revealed active resistance movements still fighting across the galaxy. Sarah, one of her team members, called out, "You need to see this." She moved to his position and looked at the data he had discovered. It was a detailed analysis of human psychology, written by Dominion experts. The report concluded that humans were unsuitable for integration because of fundamental flaws in their thinking. The flaws were listed clearly: excessive creativity, inability to accept authority without question, tendency to form emotional bonds, across species lines, persistent belief in abstract concepts like freedom and justice, and most dangerous of all, refusal to abandon hope even in hopeless situations. Sarah smiled as she read the report. The aliens had studied humanity for months and reached the correct conclusion. Humans were unsuitable for integration. They were also unsuitable for slavery, conquest, or any other form of control. "Download everything," she ordered. "This data proves that every species the Dominion ever conquered was capable of resistance. They just needed to know it was possible." Across the galaxy, ancient communication equipment hidden on enslaved worlds crackled to life. Signals that had been silent for generations began transmitting again. Resistance movements that had survived, in secret for decades, emerged from hiding. The human liberation broadcast had given them something they had lost long ago. It had given them hope. On 847 worlds, beings looked up at the sky and saw something new. They saw human faces promising that freedom was coming. They heard human voices telling them that their suffering had not been forgotten. Most importantly, they learned that resistance was not futile. The Dominion Empire, built on the belief that resistance was impossible, began to crack. And in the spaces between those cracks, something powerful began to grow. It was the sound of 847 worlds preparing to break their chains. The Dominion fleet began its retreat at Hour 71. Commander Zethkar stood on his bridge, watching Earth grow smaller on the main display. His once mighty fleet limped away from the blue planet like wounded animals fleeing a predator. His ships carried human boarding parties that had refused to leave. The other half broadcast human voices across the galaxy, whether their crews wanted them to or not. "Sir," Veleth reported with a voice that shook. "We're receiving surrender requests from 17 different ships. Their crews want to defect." To the humans, Zethkar said nothing. Around him, his own crew worked at stations covered with human writing. Every screen displayed messages in dozens of alien languages, all saying the same thing. Earth remembers, help is coming. The retreat had been inevitable. Not because humans had superior weapons or technology, but because they had broken something fundamental in the Dominion's collective mind. They had proven that resistance was not only possible, but joyful. Worse, they had made the act of liberation contagious. "Signal from Dominion Command," the communications officer announced. "They're ordering us to maintain communication silence about this engagement. They want to cover up what happened here." "Yes, sir." "Official reports will state that survey target 848 was deemed unsuitable for integration due to environmental hazards." Zethkar almost laughed. Environmental hazards? That was one way to describe humanity. Dr. Sarah Chen stood in the communication center of the captured Dominion ship, now designated as Earth's first interstellar vessel. Around her, human engineers worked alongside defected alien crew members to understand the ship's systems. The atmosphere was electric with possibility. "Status report," she said into her headset. "Sarah, this is incredible," came the voice of Dr. James Wright from London. "We've established contact with resistance movements on 37 worlds. They're sending us detailed information about Dominion military positions, slave camps, and communication networks. What about our new allies?" "The defected Dominion soldiers are providing technical specifications for their entire fleet. Apparently a lot of them have been waiting for an excuse to rebel for decades." Sarah smiled as she watched human and alien technicians working together at the ship's control systems. The Dominion had made a critical error in their understanding of human nature. They thought humans fought only for themselves. Instead, humans fought for anyone who needed freedom. "Maria," she called to her teammate at the navigation station, "how many ships do we have operational?" 12 Dominion vessels with mixed human-alien crews. The other ships in their fleet either retreated or are still dealing with our boarding parties. Plus, we've got 47 Earth-based spacecraft being retrofitted with captured Dominion technology. Our passenger manifest? 2,000 human volunteers and 800 Dominion defectors, all ready for the liberation tour. Sarah looked at the star charts displayed on the ship's main screen. 847 red dots, marked enslaved worlds scattered across the galaxy. Soon, those dots would start turning green as liberation fleets arrived to break the chains that had held them for generations. "Open a channel to Earth," she ordered. President Santos appeared on the communication screen, her face showing a mixture of exhaustion and triumph. Behind her, the emergency bunker had been transformed into a coordination center for humanity's first interstellar military campaign. "Sarah, how soon can you begin the liberation operations?" "We launch for the first target in 6 hours," Sarah replied. "The former Dominion crew members have identified 12 worlds where the local population is ready to revolt. We'll provide orbital support while they retake their planets." "What about reinforcements from the main Dominion fleet?" "That's the beautiful part, Madam President. The Dominion is facing revolts on dozens of worlds simultaneously. They don't have enough ships to stop all of them. Every day we broadcast, more of their own soldiers switch sides." Santos nodded slowly. "Sarah, I want you to know that Earth is proud of what you've accomplished. You've given freedom back to beings who had lost hope. You've only gotten started, ma'am. Humanity has 847 worlds to liberate. It's going to be a long war." "It's not a war," Santos corrected. "A rescue mission." The first liberation fleet departed Earth's orbit 12 hours later. 12 captured Dominion ships and 30 converted human vessels headed toward their initial target, a mining world called Kepler-4 for 2b, where an indigenous species had been enslaved for 2 centuries. As the fleet entered hyperspace, Sarah broadcast a message that reached every corner of the galaxy. "This is Commander Sarah Chen of the Earth Liberation Fleet, calling all enslaved peoples. We are coming. We remember your suffering. We remember your heroes. We remember every injustice committed against you. Today, the galaxy learns what happens. When someone threatens human friends, the response was immediate. From 847 worlds, faint signals replied, some in languages that had been forbidden for generations, others in codes that resistance movements had kept. Alive in secret, all of them carried the same message. We are ready. We are waiting. Come quickly. Back on Earth, the sky had changed forever. The captured Dominion ships hung in orbit like new stars, their hulls covered with messages in every human language. Children pointed up at them and asked their parents about the adventure happening above their heads. Artists painted pictures of humans traveling between stars to help distant friends. Scientists worked around the clock to understand alien technology that would take humanity to places they had only dreamed of. But the most important change was not visible from the ground. High above Earth's atmosphere, communication arrays broadcast continuously to every corner of the galaxy. The broadcasts carried human music, human stories, and human promises. They told any being capable of listening that freedom was no longer just a dream. The Dominion Empire had ruled the galaxy for 1,000 years. It's built on the belief that resistance was futile and hope was dangerous. But they had never encountered a species that turned hope into a weapon and made liberation a celebration. They had never met humans who fought not just for victory, but for joy. 8 months later, the first liberated world raised its own flag beside the banner of Earth. Within a year, the number had grown to 50. Within 5 years, the Dominion Empire existed only in history books as a warning about what happened when someone tried to chain the galaxy. The sky above, Earth, still shimmered with alien technology merged with human innovation. But now it served a different purpose. Instead of hiding invaders, it guided liberation fleets to distant worlds where beings waited for freedom. Children on 847. Worlds looked up at their own skies and saw something their grandparents had never seen. They saw hope flickering among the stars, carried by humans who had turned an impossible situation into the greatest rescue mission in galactic history. In that moment when the sky turned human and the alien certainty broke, the galaxy learned that some species don't just survive impossible odds, they thrive on them. When they do, they make sure everyone else gets to thrive too. The humans were coming, and they were bringing freedom with them.